Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group. And with me as always is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
Doing great. How you doing, Eric?
Doing fantastic. We are starting to wrap up the year and heading into the Christmas season.
Okay, was wrap up a pun, Eric? Christmas season.
Not intentional, no.
There you go. Yeah, went out this morning with my wife and ready to start getting that thing going. And although it's going to be totally different, it's still so wonderful to drive around and see all the lights and everything else going up because Lord knows we need this stuff this year. So
Absolutely. We'll be taking the Festivus pole out from the crawl space. We find tinsel distracting. Yes, for those that didn't catch that, it's a reference to a Seinfeld episode. All right. So we've got a special guest this week. And Chip, you know her better than I do, so I will let you do the honors in the introduction.
Yeah, today's guest is Tabitha Shustock. I hope I pronounced that last name correct. If not, you can correct me afterwards. But I met her through networking. Don't know what that is, but no, at a networking meeting probably about 3 years ago. And then through the West Hartford Chamber, and she and I immediately hit it off. And when we met for the first time face to face, we had so much in common as far as, talking about the holidays and us needing a little positivity for Christmas. Tabitha is one of the most positive people that I've ever met. And it just flows through everything that she does as far as personally, professionally, and whatever. And she has quite the background, both professionally, but volunteerism and a lot of different things. So rather than go right down her resume, Tabitha, tell us all about yourself and where you came from and what you're doing right now, which is just amazing when I saw that you're landed where you are at this particular point in time. So.
Oh, that's quite the introduction. Thank you so much, Chip. Yeah, I had the luxury of meeting Chip doing some networking through the past few years. And I just immediately clung to your personality, Chip. Like Happiness and Success GPS, I was like, bingo, I'm on it. That energy just is like the exact spirit that fires me up. And so when I see people like that, I'm like, these are the ones that I want to connect with. And yeah, I fell into the networking scenes kind of in the West Hartford and Hartford, Connecticut area when I started my professional career in about 2016. Prior to 2016, I was a career bartender and I worked in marketing as like a brand ambassador a little bit. I was like the girl at the concerts that you would see like handing out the free like lanyards and buttons. Wearing like the Coca-Cola t-shirt and handing out free samples. So I did that for a number of years and I was a bartender, just kind of working on tips and working here and there all through my 20s. And I had gone to college but left because my family didn't really have the means to support the rest of my education. And I just was, a shift worker. And by the end of my 20s, I knew I wanted a career. I knew I didn't want to see myself be a bartender for the rest of my life. But I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to go back to school and I didn't know how I landed a professional job. I didn't even know how to send a professional email. So I ended up getting an administrative job in West Hartford for a commercial real estate firm. And I didn't know how to do my job. I didn't know how to do it. But I realized that if I went to these networking meetings or if I went to these business development meetings, I could get a free education. Some of the meetings were at the University of Hartford Women's Business Development Center, or I could go and I could like listen to these speeches from these really inspiring women in the community. So I just went. I just started going for a luncheon here and a networking meeting there, and I'd go and I'd shake as many hands with as many intelligent people as I could find. And I found out you get free coffee and free donuts. So I started just clinging on to the people that I saw that had what I wanted. And I started growing in my career and I was finding really great connections with really great people. And by 2018, my job put me back in school. to finish my degree that I had left back in 2008. So I went back to Bay Path University, the same school that I left, and I completed my bachelor's degree in marketing. Um, and I actually graduated this year during the pandemic. And the firm that I was working for wasn't really doing it for me. There was just something about it that wasn't going to work out in my life. So, scared and nervous, I left there to finish my last year of my degree off. And I decided to just take on part time work. And so I was taking on a part-time brand ambassador job. I went networking every day. I saw Chip every Friday. And in that part-time work, I was sitting on the floor one day and they asked me if I was interested in taking an executive assistant position at this fantastic progressive political consultancy firm. And I took that position, and now here I am. Within a few months, I was promoted to director of operations, and now I am, and I work for Grossman Solutions, which is like I said, progressive political consultancy in downtown Hartford. And we do amazing work for some of the biggest organizations in the country, Human Rights Campaign. I got to work on the Democratic National Convention Committee this year, and we work with Access Health Connecticut, and really amazing stuff that I get to do today. And the biggest achievement is that I don't bartend anymore. And I just love to see other women in the community and tell them my story and let them know that they don't have to sit, and they can always grow and get bigger, just one little step at a time.
It must have been amazing to join a firm to do this kind of stuff during this boring election season.
Terribly boring. If only there was some action. Only something to talk about.
We were talking a little while ago too, and I mean, you're living in Hartford now also, and talking about dealing with the pandemic, going up and down the street, and both you and I know that there's a whole lot of positive people out there, and all you got to do is share your smile with them, and it shares back. And I found out this time around, I didn't realize that you are such a runner. But tell me about your morning routine when you're out there jogging.
Oh, heck yeah, Chip. I was glad that you asked that of me, because Chip and I are the same type of people. We love to smile, smile and make people's day. And through this pandemic, it's hard on. There's no doubt about it. It's hard on all of us, and it hits us all at different times, I think. And some of us have better days than others. And so every morning, I live in downtown Hartford, not too far from the riverfront, the Founders Bridge. And so each morning I go out for my morning run. It's maybe 5:30, 6 a.m. And I bring a penny with me. And I go for my run, and I see some faces, and each face I see, even though I run in my mask, I make sure I smile at them. And I know Chip talks about it. You can't really see a smile from behind a mask. So I make sure I wave obnoxiously at everybody I run by, and I say, hello, good morning. And even if the people aren't looking at me or they look at their cell phone, I make sure I wave. I don't want it to seem like I'm missing out on anybody. And so since I've been doing that since about April, I've made a few friends on that run in the morning, and there's certain people that recognize me. And there's this one gentleman who stands on the corner panhandling by that exit ramp. And every time I run by in the morning, he says, hey, and I say, hey back. And then when I take that penny down to the Founders Bridge every morning, I make a little wish. And sometimes it's for our country, and sometimes it's for what's going on in our world. And I throw that penny off the Founders Bridge, and who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, I'm sure
That's
your attitude towards things must have had quite an effect on a lot of the people that you were working with, especially during the most recent election campaign, because obviously you're in a volatile situation with people with strong opinions about this and that and whatever, and yet somehow you're able to keep your sanity, and it's because of who you are. And I'm sure that that's rubbed off on certain people, and the people that you're jogging by and so on and so forth. Even if they're down, just for that 1 minute, you're lifting them up. So you really have the perfect personality and really the perspective to deal with what you're dealing with.
I mean, I don't know. And, we get to like live life forward and look at it backward and learn from it backward. But one of the things that I've heard that's always really inspired me is we get to do our work where our greatest passions and our greatest gifts meet the world's greatest needs. So I've been thinking about that a lot this year because I've never been a political person ever in my life. In fact, I've always kind of like just not paid attention to it very much. And I keep thinking this year, like my greatest gifts meet the world's greatest needs. If that, if isn't something. So I guess like I just think that the world has us show up where our greatest gifts meet the world's greatest needs.
That's fantastic. I love that. And I love the way you found yourself into political consulting, because what Tabitha doesn't know is that I used to be a political consultant, although I'm going to guess I was doing it when she was about 5.
I saw the back of Netflix.
Right. The best political operatives I ever met were folks that never thought they would be involved in politics, because they were bringing a passion to it, and they gravitated to it, rather than people who were raised to go into politics and sort of took it all as a process. There's something to be said about that passion. And that passion tends to lead people into politics completely by accident.
That's very interesting you say that, because I felt in the beginning when I had started, and we would have our political conversations every day, I wasn't sure that I had the information or the background to give my opinion or my thoughts in a lot of the conversations we would have, so I would stay quiet. And Chip might know this, and once you meet me, I'm not a very quiet person. And one of the women that works on my team had called me up one afternoon, and she said, Tabby, every time we ask a question, you always say, like, I don't have the experience, or you stay quiet and you don't give your opinion. And she said, stop doing that. Your opinion and your knowledge and your experience, whether it comes from a Yale degree or it comes from whatever, it comes from a political science degree, or it just comes from what you see and observe in the world, is just as valid as any of ours. And we want to hear it, and we want to know it, and we want to see it, because realistically, my experience is more similar to what the country is experiencing right now, because most of the country doesn't have political science degrees. So it is just as useful and helpful in the work that we do. And that kind of shell-shocked me and allowed me to speak more freely and do my work better. I loved that she said that to me. It helped me a lot.
Yeah, that advice is absolutely correct. And it's something that I hope all of our listeners remember, is that a degree does not really give you knowledge. Experience gives you knowledge. And knowing a fact or knowing a lot of facts doesn't give you wisdom. It's how you apply what you've experienced. That's what gives you real knowledge. That's what gives you wisdom. And you have to experience things. And like you said, you didn't have the money to complete your degree in the first place. You went out to make money, as a bartender. These are the things that people experience every day. And it's actually a real problem with politics, in that the people at the heads of these tickets have not experienced this and don't really relate to what the average person is going through. So hopefully you can advise them on that.
One of the things that I was surprised about, getting to see some of the politicians on the back end, was how real they were, and getting to work on the DNCC process, watching how they pulled so much information, because I got to work on the draft committee. So watching how much information they pulled from real people, and watching how much testimony they took from across the country, that was really surprising to me. I kind of just thought that it was that case, that this was just sort of politicians' opinions that they developed with their, degrees and that kind of thing. But when I saw how much information they took and opinions they took from real people, and from the work of real organizations that really care about the projects that they're working on. They really care about the process. Like they really care about their communities. Um, when I saw that, I was really inspired because I had no idea um, how how big it was. I guess I could say I had no idea how big it was, and that changed my opinion on politics in a big way.
Yeah, my
Nice.
from the outside, having never been involved in the past, and having been through so many elections. I mean, the first person I voted for was Nixon in '72. I'm aging myself a little bit, but with what was going on this year and such polar opposites in the presidential candidates and party outlooks and so on and so forth and whatever, and you couple that with the pandemic and everybody being so scared, and then the racial injustice going on, and all these different things have people way outside of their comfort zones. And so you do see a lot of people that are talking about a lot of different things. And I think that really helped out, especially on the Democratic side, that they were listening to these people and doing this, because so many people came out and so many people have such wonderful things going on that don't just get don't get publicized, and people just don't pay attention to until this year. This year, even though you're seeing all these bad things going on, and they still are, and they're still in the headlines on the news, you're seeing a whole lot of good news stories out there also, just about what you're talking about out there. So it must have been heartwarming for you to walk in and actually see that that's the way that things are now. Because my gut feeling is maybe 20, 30 years ago, it might have been a little bit tougher to get candid opinions from people, or at least they might have been suppressed.
Yeah, and I definitely don't know how it used to work in the past. But watching people speak up on issues, I like the more the merrier, in my opinion, the more the merrier. And because everybody gets a voice. Like everybody gets a voice, even if we don't like it. I just that's what I love about this country is that everybody gets a voice, even if we disagree with it, even if it sounds terrible. Like everybody gets a voice, and that's my favorite thing.
No,
I love that you said that because it is so important. One of the things, you may not agree with somebody, but they have the right to their opinion, and you don't change somebody's opinion by suppressing it. You change people's opinions by discussing it and actually bringing out facts. And this past election cycle was so negative. I want to talk a little bit about that. You're obviously a very positive person. Going through this election, how did you keep that positive mindset going?
Well, one of my mantras was like, am I willing to mess this one up? Like, am I willing to get this wrong? Like, and so that was like, for whatever reason, that was the way to keep me positive because negativity for me comes from fear. Like, negativity, like, fear isn't, it's charged with negativity. So if I can flip that negativity into like a willingness to be, to think kind of creatively or to take accountability, then I can be positive about it because I can be confident in the decisions that I've made. So anytime I stepped into something with a little bit of fear, doubt, or uncertainty, I would ask myself the question, am I willing to get this one wrong? Like, am I willing to just make a mistake and be brave? So before I did anything or walked into a situation or sent an email or spoke up about something that I wasn't sure, I entered a conversation that was maybe a little bit charged, or I did anything. Am I willing to get this one wrong? And a lot of times the answer is yes, because if it's something that I've never done before, if it's something that I've never seen before, if it's a conversation I've never had before, I can be willing to take accountability for it because then I can be coached. Then I can learn from it. Then I can talk about it and reason it out. If I do nothing and hold my voice back, hold my actions back, hold everything back because of fear, there's no growth. There's no growth. And then if I ask myself, am I willing to get it wrong? I can stand up and say, yep, I did this. Totally did this. I didn't know what I was doing, but I took a risk and I was brave, and here I am.
Yeah, and I think
that is so true. People often stay on the sidelines because of fear of failure. But when you look at the most successful people on the planet, And I'll toss out a couple of names, Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, Steve Jobs. These are people that failed much more often than they succeeded. And the most successful people always fail often because they're always trying something new. And that's so important for people to remember.
Oh yeah. Like the amount of times I go throughout my day like with my forehand in my head thinking like, oh my goodness, Tabitha. But I always feel like I'm willing to get it wrong. And I hope all those times I get it right. But I'm always willing to get something wrong, so long as I take accountability for it at the end.
Yeah, I think the way that you approach things means so much too, because the bottom line is you approach things just as your genuine self. Whereas other people, they're going to be charging with their opinions, and there's no way that they're going to be swayed in either way. And the bottom line is there is no right and there is no wrong when it comes to different people because people have their opinions. Most rights and wrongs are people's opinions, and you cannot get down on yourself if somebody doesn't get it or somebody disagrees with you and whatever. So your approach in just listening and trying and so on and so forth, and I'm sure you listen with a lot of empathy towards people and you're very encouraging to people, and those are so important. Just you can only be your genuine self. That's the only person that you control, which is that person in the mirror. And one of my favorite phrases is, what other people think about you is none of your business. So putting that fear, which false evidence appearing real, the acronym there, aside, it's so important. I know that it's so much easier said than done, but kudos to you for doing it and living it.
Oh my gosh, Chip, you're so right. It's so much easier said than done. It's so much easier to say I'm going to put that self doubt away than actually do it. But sometimes it really just takes stomaching that blow and then just moving on, doing something different. And the best way that I've found to do that is to, because I'll get stuck in me. I'll get if I make a mistake, I really get like self-conscious or whatever. The best way to do that is that I reach out and like help somebody else. Because once I get my mind into helping somebody else or making somebody else's day, I suddenly feel better. Like yesterday, I told you about my runs. Yesterday, I was kind of in the dumps for a minute about something silly. I went on a run. I saw these people with graduation caps and gowns and just running down the street saying, congratulations. That instant thing, seeing those people smile and knowing that it was something little and small that I can do to make people smile, that turns whatever I was thinking about me, whatever little thing, turns it right upside down, knowing that I can help somebody by making their 2 seconds flip around.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. It's so important to look at other people. And, we tend to get wrapped up in ourselves. And sometimes you need to give yourself permission and forgiveness just to say, you know what, I made a mistake. That's fine. Let's move on to the next thing. Especially here in the United States. I mean, there's a lot of talk, I'm sure, in politics, you've heard the phrase constantly, the 1%. Well, the fact of the matter is, if you were born in the United States, you are already in the 1% globally. So it's important to remember how much we have. And yes, we make mistakes. Yes, we're not perfect. But we have so much, we have to be grateful for it.
There's so much to be grateful for. And at the end of the day, whether you are on the progressive side or you are on like a Republican side of it, like at the end of the day, like this right now is the best season to look at it. We're all going to still celebrate together and there's no fighting on the lifeboat. We're all just right now in COVID trying to stay alive. And maybe some people aren't doing it correctly to the way that I would do it. But we're all just fighting to stay alive and there's no fighting on the lifeboat. So if I can just do my part in being nice and I can do my part in what I'm thinking that is the best and that's it. I'm not going to be mean to my fellow because they're doing their best to stay alive too. So that's it.
Yeah, we talk from time to time about the tipping point, which is all about contagious behavior. And we hear all of this negativity and people get on the negative bandwagon with their Facebook posts and their political this and that, whatever. Positivity is more contagious than any negative thing that's out there. And you see that when you're doing your runs, when you're waving at the people graduating and so on and so forth. And to you listeners out there, the more that you can do that kind of thing, you're going to be drawing people along with you, because if you start doing that, the whole room is going to light up. You know, there's a saying that goes, you either light up a room walking in or walking out. You're a shining light, and that's what we all need to be in dealing with this stuff. So just see the good in everybody out there, listeners, and smile and acknowledge it, and you too will be contagious as far as making them positive too. So you've inspired me, Tabitha.
Thank you, Chip. I love that. Light up a room when you're walking in, not when you're walking out.
Yeah, we've talked a lot on this podcast about positive mindset and the effectiveness of it. And you're really living that. I mean, going out on those runs, making that effort to share positivity. It's so important that people do that. And yet so few of us actually do, because we get caught up in our own heads. And when you look at other people and you just go, you know, if you can make them happy for even just a moment, that's a big contribution to the world. And you're doing that every day.
And it's just a little thing. It's just a little thing. And I think that people do it more than they think that they do. And it's just a little way to just, it changes my own world when I do it, and it changes another person's world. Just a simple small wave, or a simple small hello, or just a simple, you know, we can't pick up things for other people these days, but any little gesture, I think it just changes everything.
Fantastic. All right, we're coming up on the end of our time. So if there's anything you want to wrap up with, Tabitha, any thoughts to share?
I just want to say thank you guys so much. This was so much fun. I'm so happy to talk to you again, Chip. And Eric, it's great speaking with you.
Thanks so much. Chip, what do you think the big takeaway for our listeners from this episode is?
Well, I think obviously I've enjoyed watching Tabitha's journey for the last few years, but those of you who just heard her story today, she's an example over a long period of time that you can basically do whatever you want to do if you just put your mind to it and you have the right attitude towards it. There's a saying by Albert Schweitzer, which I'm pretty sure I've used on this podcast before, but it says, in influencing people, example is not the main thing, it is the only thing. Tabitha, you are a really, really great example of how to do it right.
Thanks, Chip.
Yeah, I think there's two big takeaways from this episode. The first of which is, it doesn't matter what your situation is at the moment. It's not a reason to give up. You can improve your situation. You can make things better for yourself and the people around you. And the second big takeaway is what we've talked about so often, the power of a positive mindset. It does change the world. And in this case, Tabitha's positive mindset literally had an effect, got her into politics, worked with the candidates she believed in, and helped to change the direction of the country, the direction of the world. So that is the perfect example of what a positive mindset can do. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts. You can also find us on the Apple Podcasts app, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. See you then.